Love lives here.
So this morning we are continuing. This is the end of our Inclusion in Action series for the summer. This is the end of our conversation series for the summer. This whole year we have been working with, and we are continuing to work with, the theme of 2020 spiritual vision. The month's theme, of course, has been Inclusion in Action. And today we are talking about waking up. And today we have with us the wonderful, the dynamic Kat Kim. Kat is a religious science practitioner, workshop leader, and founder of the School of Divine Confidence, an online school that offers spiritual training and confidence coaching to rising women leaders and change makers across the world. As a former crack addict and convicted drug offender facing 3 years in state prison, Kat battled addiction, abuse, and depression to come out on the other side. Her inspiring transformation and work with real people worldwide has landed her on the set with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, a contributing coach on his motivational reality TV show called Wake Up Call that aired nationally on TNT. Today, Kat continues to impact thousands of people, ushering her bold and unconventional presence to help them build unshakable confidence in knowing who they are and what they are here to do. So, Riverside, please give Kat a warm Riverside welcome. Welcome, Kat Kim.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, so nice to be here.
Oh, it is so great to have you with us. I'm so glad that you were able to join us here in Riverside.
Yes.
So just for the folks at home, I first met Kat online or on Facebook, where my sister introduced us. Kat was just getting ready to graduate from practitioner training, and Michelle and Kat go way back for several years working together. And Michelle's like, you really need to meet Kat. And she told Kat, you really need to meet my brother. And so here we are. And so it's exciting to be with us today, or to have you with us today. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. It's so great to be here. And then we met in Denver in February during the 2020 convention, right before the pandemic hit, right?
Yeah.
We were able to squeeze that whole amazing convention in, and we had the opportunity to meet each other. And then as soon as we got home, it's like the pandemic hit. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, it is wild. So we've been following each other on Facebook. We finally got to hug on each other at the convention, which was an amazing experience. The convention, and of course the hug too. I mean, but the convention was an amazing experience to finally get to connect this way. And we've been following each other and doing some parallel work in the world in inclusion and equity and diversity. And so I thought it was really wonderful, and I'm so grateful that you were able to join us today to, round out this. We've been doing this series this is 9 weeks now that we've been doing this type of series, where we've been able to have these wonderful conversations. And so today I really wanted to focus in on, that waking up process, that piece about waking up and really recognizing our own unconscious biases. We've talked about some interdependence, throughout the series. We've talked a little bit about unconscious bias throughout the series. And you being a personal coach, I find it really pertinent about being able to talk about what each one of us individually can do to live intentionally and be intentionally inclusive. Yeah. So that's kind of where we're headed this morning with our discussion. And I want to dive in with, you have a really beautiful story of your own kind of waking up a few years ago, to waking up to and being able to see a larger picture, get a larger perspective. Yeah. So I'd like for you to share, briefly share. Let's start there, because it's a powerful story. It really is.
Yeah, there's so many layers to it and so many parts to it. But I have been studying spirituality for over 10 years. I created a successful business. I had clients. As you mentioned in the intro, I was invited to be part of a motivational reality TV show called Wake Up Call with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I had all these wonderful opportunities showing up for me, and I was doing my thing, making money, meeting lots of people, getting lots of clients. And, something happened. I had my own wake up call, which made me really I had to take a step back and look at my role in all of this that we're talking about here today. Several things happened, but the one thing that triggered my, so to speak, wake up call was that one of my clients, on April 14th, 2015, her son was murdered. And her son is a Black man, and he was murdered. And for several years, we couldn't even find the killer. So the killer was at large. She was in a lot of pain. And as a coach and as the things I learned in, Spirituality 101, I call it Spirituality 101, like what you think is what you get, and just think positive and just think about, all the things that you want. Like that didn't apply in this situation. And I found myself questioning, like, what is this spirituality that I was learning and I was teaching? And what is it that, how am I supposed to show up for my friend here? And, she had a funeral, of course, and there was a woman, another friend of hers who was speaking at the funeral, and her son had also been killed. And she said something, and that was the moment where I was just like, wow, she said, to the Black community, this is all too common. This is too common. And we've become too used to this, that our Black sons are being killed on the streets, that we all know somebody whose son has been slaughtered on the streets. And, it was predominantly a Black, all her friends were mostly predominantly Black there at the funeral. I was pretty much the only Asian. And I was, I just was like, wow, that would never happen in an Asian community. That conversation, it's never happened in an Asian community. And it really made me think, like, what, if it did happen in an Asian community, if that was my community and my Asian brothers were being killed on the streets, how would that make me feel? And how angry would I be that the world around me is not even paying attention? So that was what triggered so much of my kind of awakening to larger social issues, racism within our country, racism within our community, racism within myself. And I really began to question deeper the type of spirituality that I was learning, Reverend Jeffrey, right? And I gave this talk at the 2020 CSL convention about this discovery that I found around the marriage between consumerism and spirituality. I called it consumer spirituality. It essentially it's the marriage between consumerism and spirituality, and it essentially trains us to be better consumers and inadvertently perpetuates blind conformity to the often dominating and oppressive structures of capitalism and racism. Capitalism and racism go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. And we all benefit from this system, and we're all oppressed by this system. So coming to that awakening is deep stuff, and it's not easy and it's not fun. So what I say to the people who are waking up, I think there's this idea that when you wake up, it's like enlightenment, and all of a sudden it's like, you just know things and things become easier. No. Waking up is a dark, arduous, long process, and it actually doesn't end.
Yeah, it's a continual evolvement, right? It's just I kind of equate it to like waking up early in the morning and maybe the sun's not even up yet. And yet there's this light that has, perhaps it's starting to, dawn is getting ready to break. And so there's a lightning that's happening, but there's this whole process of, moving into and experiencing even more light as we're going through this, and that it's not just a one-time, like, flip the switch.
No.
And then, whoa, everything is good. Yeah, it's interesting too, and I'm so glad that you pointed it out, because Ibram X. Kendi, in his book How to Be an Anti-Racist, also talks about the correlation between the economic structures that we have currently in the United States, as well as racism, and how they support one another. And so there are, what he talks about in that book is about becoming more anti-racist in policies, and not just our own feeling tones or our own belief systems, but that it's also policy driven, that we have to change policy. And when we change policy, then hearts and minds change as well.
Yeah.
But I think at the individual level, it's also really important for us to be able to get proximate with things, to begin to change there, so that we are awakening. And as you mentioned, you had this awakening, this shift of like, wow, I don't have to think about that in my Korean American community, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to think about those things. So what else do I not have to think about? Where else am I living from a place of privilege?
100%. So much privilege. Privilege, I always say, it's not an insult. Privilege is a responsibility. But we have to, but for me to realize that I can turn off the TV, I can turn off the internet. I don't have to pay attention to what's going on in the Black and brown community. I can shut that down and be okay in my life. And I can think, about the things that I want, and think positive, and create vision boards, that type of thing. That's what I defined as consumer spirituality. This type of a spirituality where essentially it's really about improving yourself, becoming more healthy, becoming more wealthy, becoming more comfortable, that type of thing. And, to come to the realization that I am benefiting from a thing called racism it's really difficult to, it hurts. It really hurts. And I realized that the spiritual path is a path that hurts often. It's not just enlightenment. It's not just feeling good, but I feel like, we are all being called to deepen right now. We are all being called to deepen and move towards a world that works for everyone. And I realized that, first of all, the type of extractive consumer capitalism that this environment that we're all being conditioned by, and that we all live by, and that we're all benefiting from, that system requires poverty in order for it to work. That system is set up so that there is a population of people that are living in poverty, and we benefit from that. So that, it's like, whoa. And it makes me question, it makes me wonder, okay, then how am I supposed to move forward then?
And so you have an answer to that.
Yeah.
And that you call it nonconformist spirituality.
Yeah.
And so would you share a little bit more about what you call nonconformist spirituality, as contrasted to what you've referred to as consumer spirituality? Uh-oh.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. We had a little glitch there. So, what I talk about often is this concept of consumer spirituality, where there's like 4 parts to consumer spirituality. 1, it appropriates ancient spiritual teachings. So we cherry pick the positive aspects of spiritual traditions. We package it and we sell it and make it easily palatable to the Western world. 2, consumer spirituality promotes self-interest and personal development over all else. 3, consumer spirituality teaches us to be relentlessly positive and to seek pleasant emotional experiences at all costs. So any uncomfortable emotions, just like pain, anger, grief, rage, all of that is kind of cast as being negative, right? And it's cast as the opposite of spiritual enlightenment. And the fourth thing about consumer spirituality is that it promotes consumerism, overconsumption, and materialism. So it teaches us that the universe is infinite, so we can manifest whatever we want, right? But when that spiritual principle is married to consumerism, it only ends up reinforcing the vicious cycles of racism, overconsumption, consumerism, environmental degradation, and corruption around the world. So essentially, and I just want to paint a picture of what consumer spirituality is. Consumer spirituality essentially is packaged. Really, it's for privileged, affluent Westerners, right? And what I see right now is that we are all being called to move into a deeper spiritual practice and a deeper connection to the collective consciousness within our community, within our world right now. We are all being called to deepen on this. And wow, the times that we're going through right now, this is no better time than to really, really begin to almost accept that we are in a global pandemic right now, and that there is corruption and racism going on, and that we need to take a step back and really begin asking some deeper questions about who we are and how we are showing up as spiritual seekers and spiritual leaders in this world. One of the things that I began to do as I'm moving away from consumer spirituality is that I began reading from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Matthew Fox, and I realized that there's a total difference between this type of spirituality that Dr. Martin Luther King teaches versus perhaps the type of spirituality that maybe Abraham Hicks teaches. And whenever I say that, I get a lot of people who are not happy to hear that. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at the different types of teachings and lessons that we learn from different types of spiritual teachers, right? And let's be really, really wise about who we are choosing to be our spiritual teachers. I'm not saying Abraham Hicks is bad, but let's take a look and let's broaden our idea and let's deepen our understanding of what our role is as a spiritual teacher, a spiritual seeker, and even a leader in this world right now, because we need more of that. Dr. Martin Luther King said that we have a mandate to be nonconformists. We have a mandate to be nonconformists. And that means that we need to not conform to the social conditions of the world right now, and that we need to push past that, and we need to rise above that, and we need to answer to a higher call. We need to answer to the collective call, the collective suffering, and we need to wake up to that. And Dr. Martin Luther King said that we, as spiritual seekers, have a mandate to be nonconformists. This is what we are being called to do. And so I outlined what a nonconformist spiritual seeker is, right? And moving away from the four kind of pillars of consumer spirituality, I want to now define kind of the four pillars of nonconformist spirituality. One, nonconformist spirituality versus consumer spirituality requires that we develop the social consciousness necessary to advance humanity forward. Okay, number one, it requires that we develop the social consciousness necessary to advance humanity forward and disrupt the established order in a way that that aligns with our natural aptitudes. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that we all need to be a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This is for all the introverts out there, right? We're not all meant to be on stage in front of people and preaching and teaching. Some people are meant to do this to disrupt the established order in a completely different way. And it doesn't mean it's any less important or any less valuable, right? Some people are behind the scenes. Some people are writing. Some people are speaking to their family. Some people are speaking in front of big crowds. Some people are creating organizations. Some people are joining an organization. So there's so many different ways to do it. But the first tenet is that we have to develop the social consciousness necessary to advance humanity forward and disrupt the established order in a way that aligns with your natural aptitudes. Two, it requires we actively deprogram the cultural conditioning of consumer capitalism, okay? Actively deprogram the cultural conditioning of consumer capitalism and break free from the insidious belief that we must consume, or buy something or change ourselves in order to be okay, right?
Yes.
This means that we do not have to change who we are. We don't have to seek something outside of us. We don't have to buy something for that matter, right? In order to be okay. Number 3, nonconformist spirituality versus consumer spirituality asks that we grapple with the human suffering around the world. This is something that the consumer spirituality did not do. It said that if you're feeling pain, if you're feeling fear, that all of that is not spiritual, right? But that's not the truth. Nonconformist spirituality asks that we grapple with the human suffering and develop a commitment to social responsibility. This means that we have to really open ourselves up and think about and feel the pain of our brothers and sisters within our community and within the world, right? Feel the pain of the pain and suffering of our Black and brown brothers and sisters who are being attacked, right? And what does that actually mean? What does that feel like? I learned that compassion, the root word of compassion, means to suffer together. It doesn't mean to, send love and light. It doesn't mean to, think, just like think, feel bad for somebody and send them something to make them feel better. Compassion, real compassion, means to suffer together. Suffer together. That is where spiritual growth happens. That is where spiritual connection happens. And I always say that the divine lives in the depths of darkness, not just the light, right? So we have to be willing to hold each other and walk right into it, not just be like, oh, I'm going to stand here. I'm sorry that you're going through that. I hope you get through that. I'll be here when you get back. No. We have to hold each other and walk right into it together without the idea or the presumption that we're going to fix things. Right? Many people who are spiritual teachers and spiritual seekers think that we have the solution. And that's actually a privileged point of view. A person of privilege will think they have the right solution to fix someone else's problems. That's not the case, right? Mm-hmm. And the fourth thing is that nonconformist spirituality, as opposed to consumer spirituality, urges us to cultivate divine confidence. Divine confidence. What does divine confidence mean? Divine confidence is having a grounded faith and grounded knowing of who you are and what you're here to do, regardless of what's going on in the world outside of you. That's divine confidence. So what does that actually mean? That means despite what's going on, and despite how much money you have in your bank account, despite how many people are liking your post, despite global pandemic, despite the consumer culture, despite all of that in this physical world, divine confidence means knowing who you are and what you're here to do right here, right now. And that does require such a strong relationship with spirit.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, and all of that is wrapped up so beautifully in the ways that we can wake up.
Yeah.
The ways that we can look at our own spiritual practices and how we interact with spirit, and how, we individually and us as a movement mm-hmm. are, in this evolutionary period of this shifting, and how there is this real deepening that is occurring for us of really going deeper into spirit and really using the spiritual principles that we teach here at Centers for Spiritual Living, really using those spiritual principles and spiritual practices, not only for our own individualized benefit, but for the benefit of the planet. And so it starts here, it starts within. I am so excited to be with you this morning. Yeah. And I appreciate you coming and being with us here at Riverside this morning. And folks, there is plenty more of this conversation happening at the top of the hour on Zoom in Beyond the Message. But so you can move over there at the top of the hour. The Zoom ID is 249-395-737. We've only just begun, and I can't wait for the top of the hour on Beyond the Message. So again, join us over there, 249-395-737. And for the time being, Kat, I invite you to please lift our community in prayer, if you would.
Yes. My honor and my pleasure. Okay, so as we take a deep breath in, we relax into our bodies. We breathe in and we breathe out. I know that in this moment, in this beautiful moment, this is where the presence of God is. This is where love is. Love lives here, right now. And I know that it is this power of love that is moving us. I know it is this power of love that lives within us. I know it is this power of love that thinks through us, feels through us, acts through us. I know it is this power of love that creates through us. And anything outside of this love is just a figment of our imagination. Anything outside of this love is just a moment of forgetfulness. Anything outside of this love is just an idea that our ego created, and it's actually not true. It's not real. The only real thing, the only real power, the only real presence, and the only real God is this love. This God lives within me, and this love, it exists within you. This God expresses itself in every cell of our body. It expresses itself in every word. It expresses itself in every action. I believe and I know that it is this love, it is this God that is moving through each and every one of us. And even though we don't see it, even though we see a pandemic, a global pandemic, even though we see pain and suffering, even though we see people killing each other, even though we see that in this physical world, we can come back to the true essence of who we are. We can come back to the inner knowing. We can come back to our inner power, because inside each and every one of us, that is where our true reality exists. It is where our true power exists. It is right here, right now within us. And that is the power of God. It is the power of love. And when we wake up to that, there is nothing that can hold us back. When we wake up to that, there's nothing that collectively we cannot do. That is who we truly are. When we wake up to that, it is the God within me meeting the God within you. When we wake up to that, it is the God within us meeting the God within them. When we wake up to that, it is only God. It is only God. And that is where the oneness truly is. It is where the connection truly is. And so as I allow this truth to seep into every part of my body, as I allow this high vibration to move through my heart and my soul and my mind, I know that this is moving through every single person that is listening to this beautiful sermon right now. I know that we are all being called to deepen, and that yes, we are going to say yes to that call, and we are going to say yes to waking up to this love, because love lives right here, right now. And for this, I am so grateful. I am so grateful for this expansion. I am so grateful for this divine, endless, pure love. And as I breathe that in and out, I release these words, knowing that this beautiful God, this beautiful love is already acting upon these words, that all of creation is already done, and that all we are being called to do is to remember this love and remember this God. And with that, I give thanks, I release, and I let go.
Love